Hi, everybody. Welcome to Talking All Creatures Great and Small. This is a show where we recap every single episode of All Creatures Great and Small. We are diving in to season 5, episodes 2 and 3 today. Going to be a lot of fun. And I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Michelle's here.
Hey, everyone.
How are you doing?
Yeah, good.
Good.
I'm excited about talking about a show again.
Yeah, I love this show so much. Make sure you all check out our premiere recap that we did, because it's an exciting time to be a fan of the show. So much is happening, and of course we have Tristan back this season. So yay! I was talking to somebody on Twitter, and they were like, "Oh, season 4 wasn't as good, wasn't it?" I'm like, "No, don't worry about it." He's back. I mean, I still like season 4, but still.
Yeah. It's a big change, yeah.
So let's dive in. Let's talk about episode 2, Holding the Baby is what it's called. And the summary is: James struggles with parenting baby Jimmy. Helen notices Jenny's independence. Conflict arises between Siegfried and Mr. Bosworth over safety measures. Jenny's recklessness leads to consequences, and Helen allows Jenny's growth. So yeah, a lot going on. Overall, what do you think of this episode?
Yeah, I like this episode. I always like it when Jenny sort of makes an appearance, because I think it's interesting from like Helen's perspective of like, that's pretty much what she envisioned her life to be. And she's sort of in the same situation as Siegfried, in that she's had to sort of raise her sibling. So that must be, quite a difficult. I mean, Jenny's practically an adult at this point. I think she's like 17, 18 at this point. So yeah, it's always fun to sort of have that dynamic.
Plus, I just think it's interesting. It seems like that it is true even now that when you get married and have a baby, people act like you've become like a different person. It seems like, just from my observation, like all of a sudden, okay, wow, you are a grown up, and I'm sure that those experiences couldn't help but change you, and you'd mature a lot. But there are people that I feel like treat me differently as a 44-year-old woman than they do an 18-year-old who's just had a baby and got married. It's like, in their eyes, there's like a difference there, which is really funny. But I still definitely noticed.
Yeah, for sure.
If you are unmarried and don't have kids, then you are perpetually a child.
It's so funny in work. And work yesterday, I think, because like, let's say I don't have kids either. It's never been an interest of mine. Same with marriage. It's never really been like a priority. Like I live and breathe for my dog. He's my child. Right. And yeah, in work the other day we were talking about some kind of random product, and my friend was like, "How old are you? Because like, do you remember this from when you were younger?" And someone else was like, "No, Michelle's too young for that." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm 42." And she's like, "What?" Like, she could not like fathom. She's like, "No, you're like 30, mid-30." And I was like, "No, I'm not." Like, she could not fathom. I think it's just because I act younger, maybe. And also I don't have those sort of adult responsibilities that, someone half my age has. Having to run and pick your kids up from school and all of those things. It's like my life is like, I live a life of leisure in comparison to this.
Well, and it's funny too, because people give you the childless cat lady label, and it's like, first of all, I don't have a cat, but second of all, it's not like I'm avoiding marriage. Like, I would love to get married if the opportunity presented itself, but it just never has. Like, what do they want me to do? It's not like you can just stand in line and be like, "Okay, it's my turn."
Yeah, it's also just, even from like my perspective as well, we had somebody, like newer in work and stuff like that, and they're just always so shocked that like it's never been an interest to have children. Like, it's just never been like some people are just like that. It's just, you know, it's not a priority. It's not something that they feel that they need. And that's definitely me. But I think, yeah, there's just this idea that every woman wants to be a mother, and that's sort of like the be all and end all of life. But yeah, it's just never been a thing for me. I'm perfectly happy with my animals.
I would have liked to have had that opportunity if it had happened, but it just didn't. What do people want me to do?
What can you do? Yeah.
But it is funny how people do that. Like on the flip side, it seems like people act like you're a completely different person once you get married and have a kid. Like and Helen here is like, no, I'm still the same person. Like
Yeah, and it's also just like she's separate from that family now. Like she's separate from the farm. She's separate from, the way it's run and in the day to day. And it's like that's been her life for like 20 years at this point, like running that farm. And it's a bit strange to sort of see her be like out just almost of like you've got your own your husband and your child and Skeldale and that sort of your life now. But it's all of her life. It's both of those places are her home.
Yeah, that would be hard to kind of make that transition, especially if you were close, you lived close.
Yeah, that would
be
it's all
hard
within the one community. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have this back and forth between Bosworth and Siegfried in this episode that is really funny.
Yeah,
I really liked it, and the way that he's like waiting up to make sure Mrs. Hall's okay, and there were a lot of really cute moments for Siegfried in this episode.
Yeah, again, it's the slowest burns of slow burns.
Yeah, he gets a citation for breaking curfew. Okay. Bosworth's like lights out. and that was really fun. It was really funny, but I mean, I think they've made it pretty clear how Siegfried is feeling. I don't know if they made it as clear how Audrey's feeling.
Yeah, I feel like he's a bit ahead of her.
Yeah.
I don't think she's definitely like very concerned for him, especially in the next episode. But yeah, it's just I don't think it's crossed over to feeling romantic for her.
Yeah.
Whereas I think he is definitely acting very smitten.
Yes. Yeah. Stop monopolizing my housekeeper. Yeah. I wonder if the rest of the season she'll start to kind of pick up on it a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully. Or someone will point it out to her.
Yeah. And I'm kind of surprised. I thought maybe they might have dropped Carmody this season because with Tristan coming back. But it's interesting what they're kind of doing with him, and obviously they're going to have him be kind of a rival with Tristan, which I think will be fun. But in this episode, he's pretty cute. Like he's scrambling, making eggs and helping. And he's picking up on some of Siegfried's methods.
Yeah, and I do like that they've kept him. I think they maybe hired the actor and wrote that character expecting it to be more sort of long term in terms of just being not so much a replacement for Tristan, but like a more permanent character, because I don't think they really expected Callum to come back as quickly as he wanted to.
Yeah, I think so too.
So I think they've maybe written that character. So I do like the fact that they've kept him and they're committed to at least giving him like a full sort of story. So it would be a shame to sort of develop that character all season and for him to disappear. I mean, we see it time and time again with shows. And I think the fact that this character has sort of, for the most part, worked, it would be a shame to sort of drop him.
Yeah. He's taking his exams. And so he's that's what's kind of going on with him. But he's helping out around the house a lot, and he gives the calves vitamins, and James is like, "Why are you doing that? Like that doesn't have to." He's like, He understands Siegfried's showmanship, making that keep treating the animals is partly a mental thing, which was smart because this calf it won't eat. That's the problem.
Yeah, it keeps kicking the bucket.
Yeah.
Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
He gets the idea to paint the cows so that people don't crash into them is the idea.
Yeah.
But Siegfried's upset about this because it's lead paint.
Yeah.
It's dangerous to all involved. And it ends up, they find this dog, Bingo. Oh,
yeah. The second we cut to Bosworth, I was like, oh no.
Yeah, that was really sad. Siegfried gives the dog his coat, but the dog dies. He tries to help him. And again, I don't know how they do this with get these animals to behave. It's the same way in Heartland, but it's also in the show. Like how they obviously they're not actually going to hurt the animals, but how they get them to do what they do is amazing. But he just feels bad, and it turns out, yeah, it's Bingo is Bosworth's dog. Oh,
yeah. Yeah, it looks like a fairly old dog as well, so probably been with him a long time.
Yeah, and Siegfried says, I might end up like Bosworth. I'm very adaptable. But and then I also did like at the end scene Siegfried cooking to help Mrs. Hall.
Yeah.
That was pretty swoony. So James ends up having to care for the baby for a day. And he takes him up for this assignment, and he ends up leaving the baby there.
Yeah, well, first he forgets the nappies. The second the second they put in the nappy bag on top of the car, I was like, oh yeah, that's gone. But then forgetting the baby is just a whole nother level.
Yeah, and Mrs. Hall's Audra's trying to help, and this is, babies are a law unto themselves, which is very true. And Mrs. Helen's more adapted with your offspring. But yeah, he leaves the bag of the diaper bag on top of the car. And have you ever? Oh wait, you don't drive, but yeah, it's easy. I've never left anything like big on the top of the car. I have like left drinks or things like that before.
Yeah,
never anything too big. But sometimes it's just hard. You get so caught up.
Yeah.
In what you're doing. I mean, especially with a baby, I can imagine that being even more so.
Yeah. It's a lot. There's a lot of stuff you have to sort of cart around, and yeah, I see people coming into work, and it's like they've got multiple bags and all these different things, and like just to go shopping. I'm like, oh my god,
yeah,
it's so stressful.
It's hard, and I mean, I think it would be hard at this time for a man to watch a baby all day, just to take care of the baby all day, just because I think the baby would need to nurse.
Yeah. Yeah, and
You
it's
know.
probably more a thing that's, probably more traditional, and that the mum takes care of the baby, and, stay-at-home dads weren't really a thing back in the...
Well, I mean, it just practically, like, I just
Yeah,
don't think
and
as many babies bottle fed back then.
no, not at all, yeah.
Yeah. And it's so like amazing how things change. I remember my grandma telling me that when she had a baby, that they told her to feed the baby cow's milk with Karo syrup in it.
Mm. Jeez.
That was
Yeah, I
formula.
remember. I
I mean,
can't
it's just
remember.
basically sweeter milk. That's all
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, I can't remember what season. I think it's one of the early seasons of Call the Midwife. It's sort of when formula is introduced,
Mm,
and it causes like um a big issue between, the nurses that are more sort of science based and more sort of medicine, and then the nuns that have been doing, the midwifery for, decades. And then, all of the new parents, it's just all of these different factors and different opinions. And it was a really fascinating series.
yeah,
And all of the
that was a
different
good
sort of
series.
misinformation that was sort of going around at that time.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it's true that was a good series, and I mean now formula has changed so much,
Yeah,
like
drastically, yeah.
over the years, but I mean, and I don't even know if they had like pumps and stuff like that back then. So I don't think that like women today have so many more options
Hmm.
than they used to have. As
Yeah.
far so like you couldn't have a stay-at-home dad, like
Yeah.
it was not possible because you had to feed your baby like in this
We come
era.
home every 2 hours.
Yeah, there's no way. So that that was it's just interesting what options we have now as women that we just didn't have not that long ago. But he is taking care of the baby, and but failing. But it's cute to see. It's really cute to see him trying to take care of this baby.
Yeah, and it's hard for him as well, because I think, it's caring for a child. It's not been a part of his daily life.
Yeah, like
Since the child, since
like
the the baby's been born. It's just sort of been,
well, and he's
like
an
you say,
only
was...
child, right?
Yeah, I think he's
Yeah,
an only child as well. And then, I think he was there for like when he was newborn, and then this is the first time he's seen him since.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So it takes practice, and like obviously each kid is a little bit different as well. But
Hmm.
it makes the evident baby Jimmy makes the scrunching face. He always makes it. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, my grandpa, his so my grandpa and my dad have the same name, but but my dad's John Bradley Wagner Jr. and they called him JB, and my
Hmm.
grandpa was always known as Brad. So that's how we were able to to get around that, I guess.
Hmm.
Where they have Jimmy and James here
Jimmy and James, yeah.
is how they do it. But Helen goes and visits Jenny to help while James has the baby, and it turns out Jenny has made this new friend Doris, and they're out on the horses. And Jenny is thinking about moving out and working in a shop. And this definitely concerns Helen. What do
Hmm.
you think about that?
I mean, I think it's hard for Helen. Obviously, we spoke about that, but it's also kind of what she's wanted for Jenny. She didn't want her to sort of spend her life on the farm. And then it was Jenny that was sort of fighting back and saying, "No, that's what I want." Um, but I think growing up, and she was very much a child when she was sort of saying that. and she sort of probably had this more idealistic sort of view. But it is true when she's in a situation now where she's meeting all of these different people from all over the country. She's lived in this bubble for so long. So the idea of, going out and doing something else, although Helen's telling her that all of these things are possible, I think meeting somebody that's done all of these different things, it's the same age as her, or around her age, it's probably given her like a different perspective, and this idea that the world is a big place and she should probably explore outside of Derby. So I do appreciate that they did have this sort of storyline for Jenny, and I don't know if they'll return to it, but I'm glad that they sort of went back to it, because I think having her say that the farm is her life, although that's something we enjoy the show and watch the show for the community of Derby, but I think it's not fair to hold a 14 or 15-year-old to that opinion. So it was nice to sort of go back to it, and I would like to see her go out and explore a little bit.
Well, it would also be hard too, because she's the only one, really.
She's the only one, and the responsibility that she must feel to her dad, and so yeah, I do think it would be interesting if they bring someone else in as like a farmhand, somebody to sort of help, so that she's not so tied to the farm.
Yeah, and I wonder if we're going to see any more of this Doris.
Yeah, it seems strange. It seemed like they were introducing like a friend, like a recurring sort of character. That was the sort of feeling I got from her. A little bit like what's her name? It's in the next episode from the pub.
Yeah. She's older than Jenny, right?
Yeah, I think she's a couple of years older. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be a potential love interest for either Tristan or Carmody. In there, but yeah, she was interesting. She's very headstrong, and is kind of Helen sort of like, is this a good influence on her? I don't know. And
yeah, it's true. When you meet different people from different parts of the world, and even if it's within your own sort of little, UK, Ireland, but yeah, when you sort of meet people, you sort of realise how big the world is.
Yeah.
Especially when you grow up in a part of the world like, Yorkshire, where it's just all sort of farms and yeah, like a little bubble. Even the community that I'm in is very much like a bubble.
Yeah. Yeah, and so they go out on the horses, this horse Candy, and they get spooked by the airplane. Yeah. And so then they tell them to stop riding Candy, and that's really hard for them to hear. Jenny's very upset about it.
Yeah, it was like going through the Heartland thing with with Spartan all over again.
Yeah.
Well, they put them out to pasture.
The drama of these horses. But yeah. So then James forgets Jimmy. He forgets the baby, which was really funny.
Yeah, it was really funny, and I was, expecting Helen to sort of not. I wasn't expecting her to take it as seriously as she did, but then when it actually happened, I was like, "Oh no, this is actually really serious."
Well, yeah, I mean, she does kind of. I mean, I would think that she's just kind of laugh about it, but she does take it very seriously. I can understand that, I guess, but every parent has things like that happen. And I mean, it was kind of funny, this family that he's like, and he's kind of teasing James about it, like, you're a great vet, but left something behind.
Yeah, I remember when there's like a story that was told to me, obviously, because I was really young at the time. But my mum was in a shop with her friend, and it was like a thing back then. You would leave the pram outside, and it was just like a really like different times. It was very like safe, small community, So you would sort of leave the pram outside and go in and grab what you need and come out, and your baby would, your child would be absolutely fine sitting in their pram. And she just sort of walked away without the pram. She just kept walking, and my mum just stood next to the pram and just like waited to see how long it took her to realise she'd left her baby. Not too long, but it's a thing that happens.
Everybody who's been a parent has had moments like that. I don't think any of us ever got truly left. But there was a time when my parents didn't realize. I think it was more just they just didn't realize they didn't have a ride. But I was left at church, and then I figured I got a ride from one of the leaders, and I go back and I was like, did anybody notice that I wasn't here? That I got left? We're like, oh, hi. Like, oh, great. That's the only time I can think of. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure everybody now it's even though crime has actually gone down, as far as violent crime and children crime has actually gone down, we feel like it's so much less safe now because we know about all of it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It feels so much like if you lost your kid, you would feel so much more of a panic. I mean, you'd always be concerned, but I just feel like now we know all these horror stories, and so we would feel more concerned and more of a freak out. But it was really funny. And comedy. My parents forgot I was in boarding school. We'd like to take a second to thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the new book, Zoe Brennan, First Crush by Laura Piper Lee. In Zoe Brennan, First Crush, a struggling vineyard owner, Zoe Brennan, gets a second taste of first love in a sapphic romantic comedy that sparkles with humor and heat. From Laura Piper Lee, author of the witty Hannah Tate Beyond Repair, Zoe's story is both a spin-off and a standalone novel with plenty of spice. You'll have a great time reading it. You can get it wherever you purchase your books or use the affiliate link below. That's Zoe Brennan, First Crush. Then we have Siegfried trying to help the dog. And I just love how you don't expect a character like Siegfried to be like so thoughtful, and he just loves animals so much. It's so endearing.
Yeah.
He's not somebody who's in it just for like a job, or that he, had to do it, or like he really loves animals, and it's very, very endearing.
Yeah. And his whole sort of body language and sort of everything changes when he realizes it's his dog. The vendetta sort of goes out the window. Yeah.
But then it's funny that Bosworth still finds him for cooking it, for breaking curfew. And he tells him, well, the stripes on the cow worked. And they did prevent James from crashing into the cow. And so we have this great conversation between Jenny and Helen. I might be a mom, but I'm your sister first. I won't stop worrying about you. So it was very sweet. Very, very sweet. And then James tells Helen that he forgot Jimmy. Oh. So there we go. Yeah, this was a fun episode. I enjoyed it very much. Of course, I was like kind of in agony waiting because I was like, when is Tristan coming back? I knew he was coming back, so I was so excited to see it's in episode 3. Episode 3 is called Homecoming. And this one is it's baby Jimmy's christening day. There's a surprise announcement from Tristan, and Siegfried makes a promise to himself that he might struggle to keep. So overall, what did you think about this episode?
Yeah, I love this episode.
Yeah,
I was a little bit concerned when it was James's parents coming, and I saw sort of the tension between the mum and Helen, and I was like, oh god. But I was sort of happy to see it sort of dissipate throughout the episode, and it wasn't like a big thing. So I was expecting like a confrontation or like a big sort of, dramatic sort of moment. But I was glad to just sort of see it dissipate over the period of the episode. But yeah, it was so nice seeing Tristan back and like, oh my god, like Siegfried's, like whole sort of the whole portion of the episode before he comes back. Oh my god, it was so good.
Now, James's mom, she doesn't like Helen because she kept Helen. I mean, she doesn't like Helen because she kept James there. Right?
Yeah, I think that's the whole thing of like James's sort of started a new life away from Glasgow, and I think his mum just expected, and also he got that big job opportunity as well that he turned down to stay in Derby. So for Helen,
yeah. Well, so they're coming to visit. We have the christening happening. We have Carmody still taking the exams. And we also have Siegfried trying to work with this guy, Biggins. They do not get along at all. And she's trying to get this Biggins guy to give this prescription. It's like an antibiotic or something to this powders to the goat. And so, it's just because they basically treat Siegfried as this like hoity-toity, expensive, judgmental kind of thing. Like I know better than you in your big fancy education is kind of how they treat Siegfried.
Yeah. And they also want help but refuse to pay for it.
Right, yeah. Well, that like, why should I pay for the same thing that I would have done anyway? Is kind of how he treats it.
Yeah.
So yes, we have that going on. Siegfried is writing a speech for the christening.
Yeah. Didn't know speeches were a thing, but
yeah. I don't know if they really were. I think he just took this upon himself that he was gonna write a speech. It didn't seem like Ellen and James had asked him to do so.
Yeah, seems very sacred.
Yeah. We don't have christenings in my church. We have baptisms, but it's a little bit older. And so I haven't actually attended that many christenings. I maybe have been to 2 in my life. So yeah, I maybe there are speeches in some of them.
Yeah, any christening I've been to, there's not been speeches.
Yeah,
and they're really short as well for the most part.
Yeah, isn't it just part of the services that day? Yeah. So there wouldn't be. We have a baby blessing we do in my church. That's also just part of services. But that'd be the only thing I can think of like that. But so a telegram comes for Siegfried, and when you had a telegram in this era, that usually meant something bad. It was bad news, and so it's very tense for Siegfried, and then he opens it, and Tristan's coming home. Yay! Did they say why he was coming home? I can't remember.
No, he literally just wrote home tomorrow on the telegram. There's no information other than he's been sort of transferred to. Well, we'll find out later that he's been transferred to a sort of place that's near Derby, where I'll be working like 3 days a week on. It's like a sort of him passing on information to other vets. I'm assuming so he's doing like lectures. He's like teaching. It's hilarious to think of Tristan in a teaching role, but there you go.
And he says, "I will never utter a cross word to that boy if he comes home in one piece."
Oh my god, that's like the quote of the show. It's like the best line the show's probably put out.
And Mrs. Hall's like, "You want me to come with you?" to help. It was very sweet.
Mm-hmm.
And we get the reunion. To be early is on time, but to be on time is to be late, and being late is unacceptable. Oh, yay! It was such a good reunion.
Mm-hmm.
I love that, and so that was really, really good. And we have this little plot with this dog that is obsessed with this plush toy.
Mm-hmm.
This plush toy Emmeline. It was pretty cute. That was pretty cute.
Yeah, I had no idea. I've only ever had boy dogs. I've never ever had a female dog. So the whole it never even crossed my mind that it was like a phantom pregnancy or they were in heat or anything like that. I was like, had no idea what was happening.
Yeah, the dog's name is Lucy. There's the phantom pregnancy. And they're trying to set up this comparison between how much this dog is missing its toy versus how much Siegfried has missed Tristan, which was very sweet. And James says there's a forced separation needs to happen, and and Mrs. Hall says to Tristan, he's missed you. We all have. Oh, so sweet. I love this show so much.
Yeah.
I really do. Oh. So
yeah, and it's been fine without Tristan, but I think I don't know. I just feel like it didn't feel complete without him.
Yeah. And so then Siegfried talks to Biggins and says, "You never want to let go of you." And so they kind of have a moment in the pub. Jenny also goes with everybody to the pub, and Helen's like, "What?" I was concerned about that, but
yeah, she's like, I'm an adult. I'm an adult. I can do what I like now.
Yeah, and and then what was? Oh, what I have written down, Mrs. Harriet. I can't believe you tried to take away her baby. What was that?
Oh, that was James's mum.
Yeah.
Yeah, she sort of says that when you realise what was happening.
Oh, with Lucy.
With Lucy, yeah.
Yeah. And Mrs. Harriet says, "You're doing a wonderful job. You know that, right?" To Helen, which is very sweet.
Yeah, it was sort of nice to see that. Let's say I was expecting a big confrontation, and I was like, not looking forward to it because I feel we've already had that. And I feel like at this point, we don't need this kind of tension between them.
Mm-hmm.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, Hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies.
And there was a christening, which was very sweet. It was very nice. And then let's see here. What else? So of course, Biggins didn't do either of the prescription powders. and Tristan says the goat has now fever. And so he's able to get Biggins to finally listen and get the prescription. And And then Siegfried gives his speech to Tristan. All fathers share one common desire. You find yourself needing them more than they need you. Which was really sweet. And I just love the bond those two have, Siegfried and Tristan.
Yeah, it's a really good bond, and it can be intense at times, but I think this episode really just highlighted what a big part of the show it is, and how much it does for Siegfried's character when he does have those moments, because I think sometimes you can get so caught up in him sort of being such an antagonistic sort of character that he really needs people like Tristan and Mrs. Hall. And I feel like all we've really had is Mrs. Hall there to sort of show him to be more, just more, more less intense. Because really, the only time we sort of see him be like that is with Tristan and Mrs. Hall and the animals. Dealing with people isn't his strongest suit.
Yeah, but he really cares about not just the animals, but the people in his life too, which just makes you. He's just such a likable curmudgeon.
Yeah, and I think Baby Jimmy's been a big part of that as well.
Yeah, it's definitely softened him.
Yeah,
for sure. One thing, if anybody is in the London area, you should go see Twelfth Night right now. The Royal Shakespeare Company. Samuel West is playing Malvolio in Twelfth Night. I would do anything to see that. Oh, that would be amazing. It's gotten great reviews. People are saying he's so good. And I love Twelfth Night, and I love that character. It's so funny. Malvolio. And so that would be, I would love to see him in that.
Yeah, it's disappointing. I wish that more theatre stuff that happens in London travels. Even I'm not even saying like a tour, but if even just like within the UK, if they would do like a day in Edinburgh, like a couple of days.
They do a pro shot because they do that with some of the Royal Shakespeare. I'm hopeful that they did that, and also for Richard II that Jonathan Bailey's going to be in. I would love to see both of those.
I'm assuming that's going to be in the cinema at some point.
I would love to see both of them. So that, but if anybody gets to see it, let me know. I would love to hear. But he's great. He's just a very talented actor, Samuel West.
Yeah, it's crazy how different he looks. Just like looking at pictures of him compared to in the show.
Yeah, it's true. It looks like the costumes are quite elaborate. So, well, yeah. So let us know if any of you all get to see that, because that would be really fun. And these were 2 really fun episodes. I really enjoyed them, and this is a great season so far. Let us know what you think in the comments section or on Twitter, and make sure you check out our playlist with all of our recaps for All Creatures Great and Small. And I think you'll really enjoy those. And Michelle, where can people find you?
On Twitter at Michelle R. Benson.
Right. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. Also, make sure you're following the podcast, Hallmarkies Podcast, all over social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. We really, really appreciate it. And if you are listening on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. We would really, really want to get to 10K subscribers. So if you're in that camp that you're not subscribed, but listening, please subscribe. And check out the Patreon group. We really, really appreciate that. And check out the merch store. We have some All Creatures Great and Small merch in there, so please take a look at that. And thanks so much, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.